In Panama, ongoing strikes against the mining contract with First Quantum puts the Canadian company against the wall. In Qatar, Hamas leadership confirmed to be close to reaching a temporary truce with Israel. And in Russia, foreign ministers of Arab League nations and Organization of Islamic Cooperation arrived to debate on the Middle East peace options. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the TeleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news, and we do so in Panama. Popular and collective struggle affects operability of the Canadian First Quantum company. Owners of the mining Panama company informed the siege of boats towards the supplies entrance, crucial for the company's operations. The mining company stated that the blockades of the international Punta Rincon port would be influencing the operational needs and even labor safety. Meanwhile, electricity workers warned of the alleged intention of the government to provide the full electricity supply that the Canadian company needs. The President of Mexico, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, participated with the chiefs of the National Army in the parade in commemoration of the 113th anniversary of the Mexican Revolution. Close to 1,500 members of the armed forces participate in the activity dedicated to the participation of women in the revolutionary competition. During the event, recognition will be given to the Mexican delegation of athletes who participated in the Pan American Games in Santiago, Chile, where the country took third place in the medal standings. Likewise, episodes that gave rise to the revolutionary movement in 1910 will be staged. In Venezuela, more than 3 million citizens went to the polling stations to participate in the mock referendum on the defense of the Essequibo. President Nicolás Maduro affirmed that Sunday's electoral event tripled the number of people who voted in the simulation of the Constituent Assembly 6 years ago. He also highlighted that during the deployment it was demonstrated that the country has a strong public state and has a strong public power. In this sense, the president made a call to the Union to build the future and recover the territory of the Guayana Essequiba, which historically belongs to Venezuela. The National Institute of Statistics of Uruguay reported that the unemployment rate increased by 8.6% in the country. According to the institution, more than 161,000 people are looking for work without finding it. The highest unemployment rate is located in the interior of the country, where it rose from 8.5 to 8.9%. In Montevideo, it increased by 1/10 of a percentage point to 8.2%, although previous institute reports indicated that in September the national unemployment rate was 8.3%. Dominican Republic authorities confirmed that the death toll rose to 24 after heavy torrential rains. The weather event forced the evacuation of more than 13,000 people from their homes, and preliminary data reports that it affected more than 2,000 homes and left 45 communities cut off from communication. Among the most notable damages are problems in 24 circuits of the electricity distribution company, and 110 aqueducts of the National Drinking Water and Sewerage Institute were out of service. Emergency services are still working in the area as it is feared that there may be more victims. President Luis Abinader described it as the event with the highest rainfall ever recorded in the country, with values of 431 millimeters in some areas. In this context, authorities declared 3 days of national mourning following the deadly floodings. The national mourning will be in effect from Monday to Wednesday, November 22nd. During these 3 days, the national flag will fly at half-mast in military installations and in public buildings throughout the Dominican Republic. On the other hand, it was reported that 30 out of 32 provinces are still on alert, 14 of them in red, 12 in yellow, and 4 in green, due to the heavy rainfall, which also triggered cuts in basic services such as electricity and drinking water in some regions. Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at TeleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. All the stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back from the south. The head of the Palestinian Hamas organization, Ismail Haniyeh, confirmed on Tuesday that they are close to reaching a temporary truce with Israel. Although the details were not disclosed, Haniyeh assured that they have given an answer to the Qatari mediators. In this sense, Mirjana Spoltarik, the president of the International Red Cross, reported that she had held a meeting in Qatar with the head of Hamas to advance in humanitarian issues. On the other hand, on Monday, the White House referred to an agreement aimed at guaranteeing the entry of humanitarian aid and the release of some hostages, affirming that they were closer than ever to achieving it. The Zionist army again attacked a school in the Jabalia refugee camp. The attack left dozens dead and injured. Aircraft of the occupying army attacked the Hafsa school in the Al-Fallujah area west of the Jabalia refugee camp. There being a facility protected by the international humanitarian law, hundreds of civilians, mostly women and children, were sheltering from the genocidal Israeli violence. The explosion hit 9 houses in Beit Lahaya, communication towers in Gaza City and in the north were again targets of the occupiers, resulting in a total disruption of communications in those areas. The siege continues in Gaza, especially in southern Gaza. The bodies of the people killed lie on the floors of the hospitals, mostly women, children, and the elderly. For more information, our correspondent Nur Harasin reports directly from Gaza.
Israeli offensive continue here in Gaza and specifically also in southern Gaza, the safe place where the IDF talked about. Right now I am inside the Al-Aqsa Martyrs Hospital. Here as they were preserved the bodies of the people who were killed. There actually we have the bodies of kids. There were more kids, but their families came to take them to bury them. But here we have the bodies of 2 kids. One of them is actually a newborn. He is 2 months old. And most of the bodies here actually are also women. At the same time here we have a whole family, Al-Hajj family. The Israeli warplanes targeted their home at this early hours of the morning. According to eyewitnesses and relatives inside the hospital, they said that there is 55 people inside the hospital. However, they managed only to evacuate 8 bodies, including women and also children. However, we're talking about more than 30 or 35 people that are still under the rubble of the Al-Hajj family. A whole family just erased that symbol. And again, let me point out, this is happening in southern Gaza, the safe area. At the same time, the Israeli attacks on hospitals continue. Of course, as we all know, the Al-Shifa hospital now is a closed military base. And now there is a new Israeli besiege on the Indonesian hospital. They are attacking the Indonesian hospital where there's thousands of people inside the hospital without food or water. Nur Harazin, TeleSUR, Gaza.
Palestinian authorities report that only one health institution is operating in northern Gaza, while the transfer of wounded people to the south continues after 45 consecutive days of total siege by Israeli forces. More than 100 injured people were transferred to Khan Yunis on Monday from the devastated but still operational Indonesian hospital, which serves as a shelter for hundreds of displaced people. The citizens arrived at the Nasser Hospital and the European Hospital, located in the south of the Gaza Strip, during Monday night. In this context, Palestinian doctors denounced that Israel is strategically destroying the health sector in Gaza to ensure that no one survives. The first field hospital sent by Jordan arrived in Palestine's southern Gaza on Monday. The truck carrying the hospital, the first facility of this kind since October 7th, together with 170 health personnel, arrived in Khan Yunis in southern Gaza Strip, where the hospital will be installed. Weeks of intense bombardment and acute shortages of fuel and medical supplies have prompted the collapse of Gaza's health system, with the majority of hospitals no longer functioning. Palestinian authorities made an appeal to the international community to ask for support to the country's health system. According to official reports, the conflict has left so far around 30,000 wounded across Gaza and 13,000 killed, mostly civilians.
The Jordanian hospital consists of 2 wards. A casualty ward with 28 beds, 2 operating theaters, 4 intensive care beds, and pharmaceutical laboratories, which are the outpatients clinics and patients assessment departments. In addition to the Department of Internal Medicine, the hospital has medical staff in rare surgical specialties such as orthopedic surgery, neurosurgery, vascular surgery, and pediatric surgery. The other ward contains 40 incubators for premature babies.
In Grenada, hundreds rallied on Monday in support of Palestine and against Israel's war crimes in Gaza. Demonstrators marched towards the U.S. Embassy in the nation's capital to denounce the U.S. support of the Tel Aviv regime in what they describe as genocide against the Palestinian people. In front of the embassy, protesters demanded the U.S. to intervene and bring an end to the killing of Palestinian children. Those mobilized held a minute of silence for the thousands killed in the relentless Israeli bombings in Gaza. The rally was organized by the group Grenadians for Justice, whose leader addressed the U.S. charged affairs in Grenada in a letter that the U.S. Embassy staff refused to deliver.
Ceasefire now! Ceasefire now! Almost the entire global community has added its voice to the call for at least an immediate ceasefire. As a people with a history of colonial enslavement, still coming to terms with such, we absolutely cannot condone any people being subjected to laws prohibiting them from freedom of movement, association, and the ability to govern their own affairs. We support peace. We cry for peace, and we stand in the tradition of Caribbean people who have for decades stood with the people of Palestine. In 2004, Grenada stood on the wrong side of history when it voted with the United States against the people of Palestine. Those dark days are over. Yes! We stand with the people of Palestine today. Yes! We stand with the people of Palestine forever. Yes! We stand for a ceasefire. Yes!
After having met with foreign ministers of China, foreign ministers of Arab League nations, and Organization of Islamic Cooperation arrived in Russia to debate on the Middle East peace options. Delegations are already in Moscow for their meeting with Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, who made statements on the silence of the encounter. According to the agenda commented by Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova, among the issues to be discussed are the urgent ceasefire and pressing Western nations to reject the self-defense qualification with which Israel justifies the massacre of thousands of Palestinians, mostly women and children. The government of Syria demands to prosecute the Israeli occupation authorities before the International Criminal Court for war crimes committed against the Palestinian people. A correspondent, Hisham Wanus, tells us the details in the following report.
El Colegio de Abogados Sirios.
The Syrian Bar Association asked to activate the commission formed by the Federation of Arab Lawyers at the beginning of November to bring before the European courts and the International Criminal Court the file of war crimes committed by the Zionist occupation entity against Gaza, a genocide and a flagrant violation of international law, which the Syrian lawyers claim to use all legal means at their disposal to prosecute and punish its perpetrators.
Palestine is already a member of the International Criminal Court, and on this basis it can file a lawsuit against Israeli crimes before this court, and we as Syrian lawyers, as well as lawyers from numerous countries of the world, will support this Palestinian step in pursuing and prosecuting the authorities of the Israeli occupation regime for violating international treaties, norms and conventions, headed by the Conventions Against the Crimes of Collective Extermination currently committed by Israeli troops in the occupied territories.
El Ministerio Sirio de Exteriores, a su vez,
The Syrian Foreign Ministry, in addition to demanding that Israeli officials and soldiers of this regime, which it described as criminal and fascist, be held accountable for their brutal crimes, condemned the use of internationally banned white phosphorus by the occupying force in their repeated attacks on civilians in the Gaza Strip, and called on the organization to ban chemical weapons and to investigate the use of such weapons by the Tel Aviv regime.
Fortunately, our compliance and announcements clash with the refusal of the great Western powers that keep the UN Security Council, OPCW, and the other relevant international organizations paralyzed, and our work is hindered by the actions of these powers that adopt a partial position in favor of the occupation regime, preventing it from being judged and penalized for its crimes and preventing international law from being applied equally to everyone.
Meanwhile, and despite the fact that, like Syria, many countries around the world are demanding a halt to what they consider an Israeli war of extermination against Gaza, the Israeli occupation forces, in defiance and violation of international law, continue their indiscriminate bombardment of homes, residential buildings, schools, and hospitals in a crime against humanity that for more than a month and a half has been affecting all the inhabitants of this Palestinian coastal enclave, particularly children, women, and the elderly.
TeleSUR Oriente Medio.
We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at TeleSUR English. There you'll be able to rewatch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back from the South. In Germany, the leaders of African countries arrived on Monday in Berlin to participate in the conference of the G20 Compact with Africa. In this conference, they will discuss a possible extension of the economic collaboration with Europe. The event was organized by the German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, indicating that the objective is to improve economic conditions in the states of the African continent that participate in the pact in order to strengthen private foreign investment. Among the main topics of the G20 Compact Conference with Africa is cooperation on sustainable energy supply. The event is also attended by the President of the World Bank, Andrzej Banga, the President of the Commission of the European Union, Ursula von der Leyen, and the French President, Emmanuel Macron. In the largest mafia trials ever held in Italy against the 'Ndrangheta crime group, 207 defendants were sentenced to a total of 2,100 years in prison. A judicial report indicates that the proceedings were initiated in January 2021 against 322 people allegedly linked to this criminal organization. After 35 days of deliberation, the judges read the sentences. The defendants were charged with membership of a mafia association, extortion, illegal possession of weapons and explosive, influence peddling, homicide, corruption, abuse of power, and drug trafficking. They were arrested in 2019 in Operation Rinascita Scott, which included arrests not only in Italy, but also in Bulgaria, Switzerland, and Germany. In these trials, Saverio Razionale and Paolino Lobianco, two of the most important mafia bosses of the 'Ndrangheta, were sentenced to 30 years imprisoned. On Monday in Turkey, the sinking of a merchant ship in the Black Sea left at least one dead and more than a dozen missing. Authorities of the Ministry of the Interior indicated the ship, Karkametler, which was transporting cargo from a Russian port to national territory, sank due to the bad weather conditions in the area. According to the information during the search efforts, the lifeless body of one of the 12 Turkish crew members on the vessel was recovered. According to the Ministry of the Interior, 4 rescue teams, 2 boats, 2 planes, and a helicopter have been deployed in the area of the accident in order to locate the missing persons. On Monday, political veteran Joseph Boakai was declared winner of Liberia's presidential election. The National Electoral Commission has declared veteran politician Joseph Boakai the winner of the presidential elections in Liberia, beating incumbent President George Weah. The commission chairman told reporters that Boakai won with 50.64% of the vote compared to 49.36% of the former international football star Weah. Boakai won with only a narrow margin of 20,567 votes. The outgoing president and former football star received praise from abroad on Monday for conceding and promoting a non-violent transition in a region notorious for coups. TeleSUR President Patricia Villegas took to Twitter to condemn the murder of Al Mayadeen journalist after Israeli warplanes attacked the team in southern Lebanon. Villegas stressed that TeleSUR community stands in solidarity with our colleagues at Al Mayadeen. She also added that more than 50 journalists and some of their families have been murdered by the Israeli army amid the genocide in Gaza. The news was shared by TeleSUR Special Envoy Alejandro Kirk, who stressed the journalists killed were young, kind, and very professional. Before saying goodbye, we want to thank our Caribbean audience, especially the audience of Trinidad and Tobago. We are pleased to share our newscast and contribute to provide an alternative news source of the latest world events. Like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. Remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on our social media on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.